So as we trickle in, and for those who are on time, you get to hear me say the same thing like 3 times. So congratulations. But good morning. It's great to see your faces. We are just checking in the chat. So go ahead and drop some love in the chat. Say hi. Big part of this LACCS opportunity is for you all to get to know each other too and get to know other comrades in the work. So the opening question that we have for today is, how has Scarlett's presentation continued to have an impact on you? How have you chosen love over the past month? And for those who are like me, when I first read the question, I was like, how have I? What did we talk about? I dropped in the presentation notes that we had on the Padlet last time. So if you want to quickly refresh your memory so that we can kind of create some continuous learning here, a reflection on our last presentation. And then I'll also include in the chat the question if you all want to look at the chat and drop your answers in there. And as always, I welcome you all to pop off of mute if you'd like to take a brave step on this morning and just go ahead and share your reflections or thoughts to the question. I would invite that as well, especially because we're going to be talking about leadership today. And I see you, Juan Pablo, on. Good to see you. Super excited to hear from you today. But yeah, we're just hanging out. Feel free to engage in the chat. Please do engage in the chat. Type in some of your answers to our reflection prompt. As we let people trickle in a couple minutes, I'll repeat this for the folks that are coming on. So welcome, welcome. Good to see you all. All right, for those who just joined in, we are reflecting on this morning's prompt, trying to connect some learning from session to session with the reflection that's noted on the screen. I don't see anything in the chat just yet, so y'all go ahead and drop your ideas. I hope that we get at least 3 or 4, so that we can start waking our brains up this morning. The question is on the screen, if for those who can see it. If not, I'll read it for you. It's, how has Scarlett's presentation continued to have an impact on you? How have you chosen love over the past month? So we remember a really powerful presentation from Scarlett sharing her own life experience and how she kind of took what had happened to her and what had happened to the students and tried to transform it into a place of love and choosing love, spreading love and leadership. And we made those connections to a lot of the character work that we're doing. So thank you, Beth. Beth dropped in the chat that she's worked on forgiveness in her life and in her teaching. That's interesting. I'm thinking about what that looks like what that manifests as, especially in the teaching space. So thank you for sharing that, Beth. Appreciate you. And in the chat, we also have both the question and the Padlet, if anybody wants to click on and kind of re-jog their memory of what we talked about. And if you weren't able to attend last session, you can see some notes in the Padlet. If you go to the chat, there's a link to the Padlet that we used to track our thinking and our notes and our ideas and our questions while we were listening to Scarlett's presentation. So good opportunity to refresh for you all this morning. Does anybody want to come off mute and tell us a little bit how they're feeling about that, or anything that they're remembering from the last presentation and choosing love? I like that, Michael.
I, I can say something about
Yeah. Hey, Russell.
yeah, about Scarlett's. Scarlett just spoke to me directly, unfiltered. I just agreed with everything she said. I thought it was completely right. I'm an apostle of Viktor Frankl, and I will give you a free book if you hint that you want one. And I'll do. I have a stack of books to give to people who want one. And so I try to practice that every day, every way, and I don't always succeed. And but I try, and I believe I should. I have found that some people, when I talk to students, they are very unforgiving of people who do things which are currently unpopular. And so I say, no, you know, we must not hold grudges. We must not be vindictive. And so when they do, and some of them are things that everybody here would think is offensive. There was a student who at UW-Madison who got drunk and said really stupid things, racially terrible things. And I think the typical response, in fact, 50,000 people on a petition said she should be expelled. And I said, no, that's you're not the person you are when it's your absolute stupidest, okay? And so we must be empathetic. And my observation is other people don't agree with me, but I hope that Scarlett would. I hope that Viktor Frankl would, and I'm pretty sure Jesus would. So anyway, so I can't say she changed my thinking, but she certainly affected it. Made it. I could see somebody else agrees with me, and so that was it.
I love that you opened with that, Russell. That's a great application of kind of what you're thinking. And we always go back to this concept of why am I blanking on what it's called? Mark, help me out. But when different values are at conflict, is it practical wisdom that we talk about? And like being able to see when I think we talked about it in like from some of the Jubilee work, but like when different values are in conflict with each other, and like that's actually like at the heart of the decisions that we're making in character education. So they always use the example of like loyalty. When a friend steals something, there's loyalty, and then maybe there's like honesty, right? And how those might feel like they're at conflict because you're loyal to your friend, but you want to be honest about what took place, and how we are all in like different positions to make decisions when values sometimes seem that they're in conflict. What you're talking about, for me, what's at conflict is forgiveness and accountability, right? And it's like those are things that I feel like we're constantly navigating, and you all are as educators, like many, many times on a daily basis, is like it's possible to forgive, and it's also possible at the same time to keep people accountable. So that's why you'll see people on different sides of that fence, Russell, of like her being expelled could be seen as a form of just accountability for your actions. It's not that we hate you. It's just that there's accountability around the decisions that you actively consciously made. That was not a good choice. And or some people might say, well, this is not a judgment on her and complete character. This was a mistake, and this is how we want to acknowledge that. So I think that what you brought up is a great example of like forgiveness and what forgiveness can look like alongside accountability, or alongside restoration and healing. Depends on, I guess, how you're viewing the expulsion, and its impacts and implications for the victims of her choices and versus her own consequences. So thank you for bringing that into the space. Anything to say on that, Russell, before we go into the day?
Well, I'm not always that way. And so I make mistakes. I feel that the locked up for life without chance of parole is
Mm,
usually a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing for Charlie Manson, okay? But this 17-year-old kid who killed some people in Michigan, he's 17. He's locked up without chance of parole. I mean, when he's 55, he's going to be a different person. And so
mm,
I think we need to acknowledge that. On the other hand, should Sirhan be released from prison? Now, most of you remember Sirhan, but he assassinated Robert Kennedy. And my feeling is well, let's wait 50 years and talk about it. Okay. So I'm not practicing it for, for that. So I'm not perfect.
Sounds good. Well, Russell, it sounds like you might have a future in law. So, I mean, I don't know what's next for you, but you might want to get into
I have a, I don't
that.
have a future. I'm retired. My future is behind me. I'm retired.
Cool. Well, thank you all, and thanks to everyone who chimed in. We'll keep things moving forward. Thank you, Mark, for your leadership today, and Ariane and Julie and all the folks that put in today. I'm just here to welcome you all. We could go to the next slide. I think we have um some norms for today, or things that we want to just reflect on as far as how we'll move throughout the day. We talk every time about how these come to life for us individually. So I'll pause for about 30 seconds or so that you all can kind of read and take in the group norms that are established and think about how they look for you and your engagement today. Awesome. Thank you, Mark. Um, if you are preparing for the flow of the day, we have the agenda posted here, and Julie sent this out as well. Lunch, does anybody remember what exact time lunch is as people are preparing the days at noon? At 12:30?
I believe it's 11:30 to 12:30. Just let me double check here.
Okay. Yeah. And then I know we'll do our typical kind of post-lunch activities, energizer post-lunch. We'll hit our breakout groups and then end the day with coaching and team time. Cool. And I think
Can I
with
just
that,
make a point? I was at a conference and I met a guy named John Williams who teaches at Principia College, and he talked about in a presentation talked about teaching character. So I got his card and I sent it to Julie, and so he's never heard of LACCS, but he certainly
cool.
sounds like someone who would be interested. So we've established a way to contact him.
Awesome. Thank you for being ambassador, Russell. That's key to this work. So thank you. Oh, I see Mr. Piper has his hand raised too. Do you want to jump in?
To complement what Russell was speaking of, I was in a program yesterday, servant leadership in lacrosse, and there were three resources. One of them was a judge, and he described how judging people is changing. They have a special court for drug and addicted people, and they empathize with the people, figure out what they need. There was another fellow that had housing, and one of the problems in communities is not enough housing, and so he had solutions across the Midwest and Northeast. So a lot of neat things are happening, but to have a judge not think like a judge, but think like a person and it's operating. It's not something that's going to happen. It should be encouraging to all of us.
I love that so much. And it's also reminding me of like going back to 11 principles. What does that look like in spaces outside of the classroom as well? And so as you all are thinking about that, I think thinking about what principles, what was just shared, what principles kind of are in alignment with that line of thought shows you the power of character education to really change the way that we operate as leaders. So thank you both for those examples. I'm definitely carrying those with me. Okay, cool. Mark, I think I'm going to kick it over to you now to get us started. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Lauren. Thank you for making everybody feel so welcome every time we do this, and I really appreciate you as well. Russell, thanks for being vulnerable and sharing your thoughts around this work, especially mentioning Viktor Frankl. One of the things I'll just real briefly share, every year we do a sixth grade family orientation for incoming sixth graders, and we talk about I have the kids turn to the person to the left and I ask if that person's perfect, and then they kind of giggle and laugh. And then I said, turn to the person to your right and I ask, is that person perfect? And they giggle and laugh. And I ask, are you perfect? And really the message is that Nobody's perfect. Like the person to your left isn't perfect. The person to the right isn't perfect. So don't expect them to be perfect, and don't expect yourself to be perfect. And we need to be forgiving of others and forgiving of ourselves. And that's one of the things we share at our sixth grade family orientation. So I love the work of Viktor Frankl, and our last of our human freedoms is to choose our own attitude as well. So thanks for sharing that. And Dick, good to see you this morning as well. We're excited to have Juan Pablo with us today. I went back and reread his article, and it just so much of it resonated with me. And so what we want to do is prime our brains. It may be a while since you've read it, and maybe some of you, like me, had a recent admin team. I was supposed to read a 4-page article, and it totally slipped my mind to get it done. So we want to give you just a few minutes. The link is here, so if you want to click on the article, we're going to put you in random groups this morning. And for the first 5 minutes, we just want you to refresh yourselves with the article. If you haven't read it, maybe skim some of the headings. And then would like you to open up the Padlet, which is linked in there as well. And so you're welcome to share a quote that resonates with you. I provided an example in the Padlet. I'll just open that up so you can take a look at that. So the first column says share a quote or one takeaway that resonated with you from Juan Pablo's article. You can see some examples. So if you want to add a comment or something that you want to share, you just click the plus button, and then a window will pop up. And then if you want to put your name next to it, that'd be great. And then if you have questions, same thing, click the plus. And I think this will be really helpful. I know Juan Pablo's here with us right now. So take a look, Juan. If there's questions that you see that you may want to address in your presentation, those questions will be listed there as well. So we're going to put you in random groups, and we're going to come back just before 9, just like a couple minutes before 9. And then I'm going to introduce Juan Pablo, and then Juan Pablo will be with you for the next 2 hours from 9 until 11. So Julie, I think if you're ready, we can put our participants into groups. We had some fruitful conversations. Again, if you have things that resonated with you, feel free to add that to the Padlet. And then 2 places you can put questions. If you want to put it in the Padlet, you're welcome to put questions for Juan Pablo in the Padlet, or just put it in the chat and drop it in there. Right now, there aren't any questions or curiosities for Juan Pablo, but I'm sure there will be as we go along here. So it is 9 o'clock, and I get the pleasure of introducing Juan Pablo. Juan Pablo is an associate professor of theory of education at the University of Navarra. He has been promoting character education since 2015 with the support of the Templeton World Charity Foundation, the Association for Moral Education, and the Prentice Foundation, with a particular focus on leadership. His work is focused on researching, designing, and implementing initiatives that aid institutions spanning education, family, and corporate sectors in discovering and implementing effective strategies to promote the personal growth of their members. He currently leads several international initiatives, including the Leadership and Character Education Program and the research project leveraging high education residential centers to promote character development. His appointments include being secretary of the executive board of the Association of Moral Education and scholar affiliate of the Center for Character and Citizenship at the University of Missouri St. Louis, among others. He actively collaborates to promote character development initiatives with many and diverse institutions all over the world. And when I say all over the world, it's all over the world. I saw the long list there, Juan Pablo, and it's very impressive. So please help me welcome Juan Pablo.
Thank you very much, Mark, for this wonderful presentation, and thank you for your applause. I just wanted to say that regarding the questions, I would prefer if you can put them on the chat, because I don't know why the Padlet is not working for me right now. And I'll also try to check if I'm not answering questions that are in the chat, please someone raise their hand or interrupt me, and I will take that into account. Now I have a question. What is Juan Pablo's views on why the US was leading well worldwide and has dropped dramatically? Well, I don't know this question, future Kane. I'll think about it, and maybe at the end of the workshop I'll have something for you. But very well. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to share my screen. This one. And I also want to say before I begin that here with us is joining me Aitor. He's my colleague. We've been working in all these different projects that I will present together. And also, if you have any question, he's really good at answering them. So don't only count with me, but also with Aitor. And I think we're ready. Can you confirm that you are able to see the screen? Yes, very well. And now I just want to see if I can share the audio of the...
Yeah, I want to start over.
Yes, I think it will work. Well, we'll see. When I put a video, I have 2 or 3 small videos. We'll check it out. So before we begin, I want to say thank you to these institutions, to the Templeton World Charity Foundation and to the Association for Moral Education for having supported us for this almost 10 years now. We haven't got this far without their support. The Center for Character and Citizenship, and especially to Marvin Berkowitz and Melinda Beer. If you haven't invited them, I think it's a good opportunity for you, to invite them to join these workshops that you're doing in Alverno. The Parentes Foundation, with whom we have been recently started to work, this is a foundation that's buying decaying schools all over the world and trying to raise them up again. And they are hiring us to help them do that work, or to implement this approach to education in these schools. And finally, University of Navarra, the research group to which Aitor and I belong, and that has been our home for the last 10 years. I want to share with you, first of all, people usually say, yeah, I will share my slides, but well, now I'm not only saying it, I'm also doing it. I will put this slide again at the end. If you want to have access to the slides, you can use this QR code, and you can have also these links, to this presentation, to the websites that we have, to a documentary that we have presenting the work that we have done. This is a documentary of public schools in Mexico, in which we try to apply what has been done in the US to promote character education, translated and applied there, and I think it was a huge success. And finally, the paper to which you have already had access. This is one of the courses that we do, the Primed Institute, which is originally from the Center of Character and Citizenship. We have translated it to Spanish and also made some small minor changes to apply it to diverse Hispanic cultures. And if you want more information, you can see it there. We also have the VLAs, which is a version of the Leadership Academy for Character Education, also at the University of Missouri St. Louis, in which we gather. This is, I think it's very similar to what you're doing right now, but it's just we meet in person. We meet once a month and we go there for an 8-hour workshop, build community, get to know each other, share, etc., etc. Here is the documentary. Maybe I can share with you. It's in both in English and in Spanish with English subtitles. I will show you the trailer. Let's see if the audio works. The audio works.
La experiencia de mi hija en la primaria no fue tan buena porque ella sufrió bullying, mucho sufrimiento de tercero a sexto año.
Personas lloran, la violencia en las aulas, la violencia en la calle.
Peleas, las riñas ponen en riesgo la vida de los jóvenes.
Mucho uso de droga, sustancias prohibidas, tema de adicciones.
Cuestiones sexuales, embarazos a los 14 años. Son jóvenes totalmente desatendidos.
El adolescente no tiene un recurso personal para saber identificar lo que es valioso, lo que es trascendente.
Tenemos un gran reto y es atender a una generación que está teniendo experiencias inéditas.
Cuando descubrimos educación del carácter, nos abrió la posibilidad de ver más a futuro y de tener una nueva serie de metas que tienen que ver con mejorar como comunidad.
Con este nuevo proyecto queremos mejores ciudadanos, niños que de verdad apliquen los valores.
Personas libres que sean capaces de autodeterminarse.
Yo sé que esos niños van a salir a la calle y van a transformar.
Creo que así es como se construyen las soluciones. Estos programas son generadores de una educación para la comunicación y para la participación social.
Te enseña a trabajar contigo, a conocerte, a saber qué vales y como profesor puedes transformar.
Intentamos devolver a la educación su más noble y original sentido.
Good character education is good education.
Yo qué les diría a los papás antes del programa y después, la verdad es que fue un cambio maravilloso, ¿no? Mi hija puede usar su voz para expresarse, pero yo siento que precisamente es debido al programa.
That's it. Let me Well, now it's closed, no? Yes. Now we're starting with the commercials. So if I go back to presentation, here it is. Okay. No, come on. There it is. So these are the countries that Mark was talking about at the beginning. These are the places in which we're doing these programs. The places that have a line below are the places that we will go by the end of this year. The other places we have already been to. And hopefully we can be there and start this. Our approach is not about doing courses. It's not about, hey, we do here and do the Prime Institute or do BLAs or do any other kind of workshop. What we're suggesting people is to build communities of practice of leaders who are willing to promote this approach to education in every country, no? And this involves school principals, researchers, foundations, professors at universities, etc. We can talk a little bit more about this at the end if you want to. Well, this is the schedule that I have planned for these 2 hours that are on my charts. The first, I'm putting this picture because I'm from Pamplona. Right now, we're in Pamplona. It's the city where the bulls run in the street. Someone asked me if I run ahead of the bulls, and I told them that no, that's usually what American people do. The Spanish state, the bulls. But anyway, so a brief introduction, then maybe a long block of 10 framing thoughts, a break, a conversation of 10 minutes, which we can either do in different groups or we can do a general conversation. I can empower you so that we can decide together. Then we will talk about empowerment and finally questions and answers. So usually at the beginning of this workshop, I ask the principals if they can tell me, hey, you're going to be in charge of a lot of children during your years as an educator. Many of these children will spend more time with you than they will do with their parents. You have a wonderful opportunity to do a lot of good. How would you like these children to be when they end up there 10 years, 6 years, 12 years with you? If you have to name the 3 top characteristics, how would you describe? Which do you think are the most important characteristics of these children? And try to put only 3 words, not phrases, not.
Wow. Oh, there's a question.
No, it's not that hard. No. You can have many of them, but try to think 3 that really matter to you. And then if this has been easy for you, then try to decide and put a circle on the characteristic that you think is the most important one. And then maybe if anyone wants to share it, please speak yourself. Speak out, or I don't know how you would say this in English. For example, Elizabeth, that I had this small conversation with you in the group. What would you say? Or maybe we cannot hear you. No problem. I can choose someone else. Russell, I think we can hear you. Can you share with which will be your top characteristic for these children?
I don't know if I have 3. I have 1.
Okay, 1.
Empathy.
Empathy. Okay, thank you for the word.
Okay, I see some on the chat, so that would.
Oh, so you're writing in the chat. Okay.
Yeah, those self-confidence and respect are very good as well.
Thank you. Justice, yes. Very well. I'm going to go ahead because we have more time. I know that you will have a lot of this equity. Very well. So the thing is, let me put the chat over here in big so I can pay attention to it where we go to. Regulated, that's a new word for me. I never heard about it. So the thing is, by doing this many times in many countries, you usually get these kind of words, okay? And usually people agree with this. This is the most important thing for educators. If you see the words that you're doing, community, kind, no? So they usually share a characteristic, all these words, and it is that mostly none of the words are academics, no? All of them are values, or morals, virtues, however you want to call them. And most of these things, as you would refer to them as being a good person or being good character, or however you want to call it. No, I don't have any problem with the word virtues. Usually I try not to use it, because in many countries this is a word associated with religion, and I don't want this to be a problem. If it's a word that works with you, use it. If it's not, I don't have any problem at all. In fact, I don't even use these words, because sometimes people get confused, or they say like, wait, Juan Pablo, what do you really mean by being just? What do you really mean by being respectful? No? So what we usually go into is this kind of traits, no, that you saw in the paper. No? Hey, we want students, we want children, we want citizens that care about the people that are around them, are not indifferent to anyone being left behind. Everyone agrees with this. We want people who are not dominated by haste or by the many things they have to do. People who are serene, listen, reflect. These people that you find that transmit peace. No? People who speak their mind, combining courage and prudence, no, and that not remain indifferent to injustice. People who their life purpose are aligned with what they do. They're seeking to contribute to common good and also find some satisfaction in it. People who know that their opinions and solutions are not the only ones and not necessarily the best. They are willing and they are looking forward to search with others. People who are kind, it's a pleasure to spend time with them, no? Nice, kind, endearing, modest, easy to deal with. We want students to whom doing their job well is a fundamental part of their life. No? They're open to learn and to improve and do things better. And finally, their motivations stem from their identity and integrity, for whom they are. They do not need to be watched to comply. These are people who can be trusted. So even though people can have their opinion and maybe don't agree with virtues or values or whatever, I haven't seen not one single educator in any country that says, I know, I don't agree. This is not something that we should promote or care for. No? Everyone agrees with this. So I believe, maybe before we begin, this is also part of the introduction, just two more slides. No? What we're doing with character education, for me, and I think for many other people, is not a different thing from doing good education. I believe social emotional learning is not another thing different from good education. I believe that moral education, emotional education, positive youth development, care ethics are not another thing that movements that have been promoted in the last decades when society suddenly lost something essential to education. And also, this is not something new. This is something that we can recall coming back to Plato, to Aristotle, to Socrates. This has already been present in education for a long time. It's just that sometimes we lost it and we need to get it back or being reminded. So I very much agree with Marvin, what he says. And I think it's a very profound phrase. It's not superficial. Good character education is good education. It's not something else that has to be done. So now, 10 framing thoughts. Why do we call it framing thoughts? Well, we believe that part of the problem with character education is the frame that we have been imposed, maybe, or the frame that we have inherited from previous generations. Is the frame to which we see this topic, to which we analyze it, to which we apply it, implement it. It's like some glasses that have been put upon us and limit the kind of colors that we can see. It's like being in the woods and not being able to see the woods or the place that we want to reach because the trees are in front of us and we're not able to discern where do we going to go and which would be the nicest route to get there. So this is maybe a presumptuous intention of my behalf and Aitor, but we're trying to change the frame to which we study this. And please let me know by the end of this presentation if we might have achieved this or not. So the first framing thought, there are going to be 10, eh? So you know when I'm nearing the end, no? The first one is a joke, but it's not a funny joke. It's a philosophical joke. So if you don't laugh, it's okay. There's no problem at all. Have someone ever read this book, Plato and a Platypus Walk into a Bar? It's a book about philosophical jokes. but well.
I've read it. It's
Very-
very entertaining.
Thank you, Russell. So let me talk about one of these jokes that you might already know. No, there's a guy walking in a park at night, and he's going to the website, and he sees another man below this light searching for something in the grass. And he approaches and says, "Hi, sir. Good night. How are you? Did you lost something?" And he said, "Yes, I lost my keys." And he says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Do you want me to help you search for them?" And he says, "Well, thank you very much. Just help me." And both of them start searching for the keys in the grass, and they are looking 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. He start picking up stones to see if somehow the keys went below some stone or whatever. And by the 5 minutes, he says, "Hey, we've been searching thoroughly. Are you sure that you lost the keys here?" And he says, "Oh no, I lost them over here." And then the other guy looks back and he says, then why are we looking here?" And he says, "Well, here the light is better." And as you can see, none of you have laughed. This is a good thing because this was a philosophical joke. My students want to have a good impression, so they laugh forcibly. But well, even though it's not a funny joke, I think it's a very strong image. And it's an image that I will be coming back throughout the presentation because it would help us to do this framing thought approach. So this will be under the light, the place where we can see, the place in which we can call it the comfort zone, or the place in which we have control and security, and the darkness, the unsafe, the uncertainty, and a dangerous place, but the place where the keys are. Second idea, we think that all this problem with education or with character education is mostly a matter of design. So I will put you some slides, and I would like you to guess, some of you, which is the name of this art collection that I will show you, okay? It's about 8 slides, and it's an art collection. Please try to guess the name of the collection. First, we have the cups of wine. Then we have this thing to boil milk or water or whatever. Then we have a spoon, a fork. No, all these objects have been designed in a certain way. The flat key. And I don't know why this reminds me of Harry Potter, but I will call them the Harry Potter glasses. And finally, the toothbrush. So anyone would like to guess the name of the art collection? Either by word or maybe on the chat. I will give 500 mini points to the one who guesses right the answer. Consciousness. Okay. That's a good try, but that's not it. Thank you, future Kane. Anyone else would like to guess? Non-functional, okay, that's a good guess, but it's not the name. Think outside the box. That's a good one too. Inefficient, very well. Unique perspective. Well, these are quite, I haven't heard this in a while or never before. Things that would be really funny to give us pranks. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. I will say the name of this art collection, you can see it is written here in the sunglasses, on the Harry Potter glasses. I don't know if maybe it's too small. It's called The Uncomfortable, which I guess you will agree that all these subjects are way uncomfortable. So the thing is that even though many of them look like design objects, you would say, hey, these have been very well designed, and you would like to buy them and have them in your house or in a party. This is not a good design. This is an uncomfortable, it's not practical, it's not functional. And we would say it's not a good design, even though they might seem having been made by a designer. So after seeing these subjects, we use Paul Houston's phrase, the one that began the article, and maybe this can help you reflect. So schools are perfectly designed for the results we're getting. If we don't like the results, we need to redesign schools. We think this is a powerful quote. First of all, because it's not imposing perspective. It says, hey, if you don't like the results, we need to redesign schools. But think about it. Maybe you like them and you're okay with them. That's fine. Keep going with it. Maybe you have a good design. But if you don't, maybe it's a matter of design. And we also, Aitor and I really like this approach because it's not a guilty-based approach. It's not that we have a villain here who is the bad guy, who's doing things badly, no, or who's being selfish or trying to make things looking only after their purpose. It's the thing that, hey, somehow the things have been organized or disposed in a certain way in which this is getting the bad side of all of us. So when principal says, hey, my students are not reflective, and why is that? This is because the families and the cell phones and no one takes time, no one thinks, they're just messing around. And you can say, hey, maybe you have very bad luck, you have the worst students in your district, you have the worst families. Or maybe you can guess, maybe your school is perfectly designed for children not to be reflective. Some other principals complain that, hey, my teachers don't commit to the school, no? And they are not involved and they don't have initiative and they are just trying to do the minimum required. And you would say, hey, maybe you have very crappy teachers. You had really bad luck when they came to your school, but maybe your school is perfectly designed for your teachers not to commit to it. And it's not that they are bad teachers. It's not that they are bad students. Maybe it's a thing of the design. So we have a school design, a design school here at the University of Navarra. And when students are invited to design a service or a product, they are always told, hey, try to find what is necessary to fulfill this service or this product and what is sufficient, because you usually don't have infinite resources and you have to limit yourself. So here we're going the other way around. Hey, what's not necessary to promote education and what is not sufficient? So when we go to schools that are beginning or maybe have been doing character education for long, and we ask them, hey, character education is important for you. And they say, yes, this is very important. No, more than that. This is the most important thing. This is way more important than academics. And we ask them, well, that's great. We also agree with you. What are you doing? Or how are you promoting this? And what do they tell us? They tell us, hey, we have a curriculum in which we teach morality, virtues, values, ethics, and it's included in the curriculum since elementary school through high school. We do collaborative learning, flipped classroom and service learning, which are evidence-based, practices that are already getting people to develop their character. We go to the beach and we pick up the trash. We do mindfulness or yoga to keep the children quiet. We do a more traditional approach to reading the great works of humanity and reflect on them to find their place in our time and in our culture. Some other people put the focus on the selection. Hey, we only select the best children from the best families, and we only select the best teachers. And all of us agree, and we are the cream of the cream, and that's how we don't have any problems. Or some other places in which they have more money or commitment or whatever, they have like, hey, mentoring program in which an adult talks with a child every 15 days for 15 minutes. And that's it. No, it's pretty much what we usually find. You may have more things, no? Am I mocking these practices? Not. Am I saying they are wrong? No, I'm not saying that. Am I saying that I don't use them? No, totally at all. I have been using them for a very long time. The idea that I want to transmit two ideas with this one, with the third framing thought. And it's, first, none of these practices are strictly necessary. And the biggest evidence that we have on this is that we have many schools who are not doing any of these practices, or maybe are doing just 2 or 3, and they are thriving, and they are doing a great job, and they are really promoting character education. So that's the first thing. And the second, hey, if we do all these practices, or even if you do more, does this guarantee that I will achieve good character education? No. These are not sufficient. You can do a lot of this, and maybe you're already doing this and way more, and maybe you're not fulfilled with the results that you're getting. And we believe this is because this is not what the keys are. What do you principals usually think when they want to promote character education? They do more things. We need to do more things. But on my 10 years with HR consulting schools, we believe that one of the major causes that are making schools have problems is that they are doing way more than what they can do. And this is burning them up. And this is making them tired. And this is making everyone gets mad at all. So more specialization, we need more courses, and we need to explain more technological stuff or modern methodologies. We need more resources. If we had more money, then we will have great character education, no? Or if we could select the students or the teachers, no? So for us, the major evidence that we have that this is not the essence of good character education is that, hey, visiting Marvin's, the Center for Character Education, public schools in St. Louis, which I think you believe it's not like a dreamland, no? St. Louis public schools, they are achieving it, even though they cannot select most of the teachers, nor the families, nor the children. They don't have excessive resources or money. They lack a lot of it, and they are having good results. So I believe this is not going to guarantee that you will have a good character education promotion in your school, because we believe the keys are somewhere else. So then, Juan Pablo, okay, maybe if you disagree with this, we can also have a conversation regarding this. So then I believe it's fair to say, well, then tell us what's necessary and sufficient, no? And sometimes even sufficient. You don't have to do way more things than this, no? If you have already achieved this. So it's something that people call, hey, having a certain climate, having a certain culture, an atmosphere, an ethos. And even though you might find in the US the school culture journal or the National Climate Association or whatever, doing all these complex things and explaining in a complex way what they are, this is not something that has to be explained to you. I mean, maybe not the first day or the second day, but after a week of you spending some time in a school, you already know what kind of school it is. You already know how things are done. You already know how relationships are made, what is important, what is not, which are the motivations that move the agents working in that community. So if we come back to the characteristics of the good persons that we want our children to be, we can also compare this with the characteristics of a culture that undermines or that promotes this character trait. So, hey, how is a culture in which people undermine these character traits? Is your school a place in which no one has time or strength to care for others? And not because they are selfish, not because they don't care about other people. It's because they cannot do anything more. They have enough just by taking care of themselves. And if they have a husband or a wife or a family, they don't even have time for them. There is no time to read, to talk, to reflect. There are just too many things to do and too much haste. Teachers and students are afraid to say what they think if they disagree with their superiors. There is just an appearance of peace. People in this community do the minimal essential work. They miss school at the slightest opportunity they have to justify it. In Latin America, this is amazing. People, invent familiars who are getting weddings or getting sick because they don't want to go to work, no? Which says a lot about the school, no? If a person doesn't want to go to their job, there's something wrong there. Teachers and staff do not collaborate on the solutions for everyone. Everyone works individually. It's not a place in which we collaborate. Bullying is practiced either by students or by teachers. Here we have some students at our university that become teachers when they finish their studies here. And we have I2 and I2 students that went to two of the top 10 schools in Spain, no? And they were received there by a mentor teacher, no? A veteran teacher who has been there for a long time. And he said, hey, welcome, new teacher. We have to tell you a mantra that you need to remember always if you want to survive in this school. So in one school, they told him, you either kill or you get killed. This was the advice by the mentor teacher. And in the other school, it was the same. But instead of, well, they say kill, but with F, which is pretty much the same, you know? And they were very surprised. Hey, this is how we are received into one of the top 10 schools in Spain. And when we have visited the schools, we agree with the teachers. It was good advice because they have such a culture. If they don't enter there and kill students at the first time, and then the students will abuse you, and you will end up being a teacher who cannot take matters into control. And the principal there would say, hey, you're not prepared. Go somewhere else. Teachers will seem to cheat to get away with it, and it's something admired by students. And finally, this is a place where people do things based on threats, punishment, rewards, or recognition, which demands that this has to be a surveillance environment. You cannot do this without surveillance. So for many psychological, social, and anthropological reasons, this is something that undermines the person. And we don't have time to go through it, but we can discuss it if you want to. How is a place in which people flourish? How is a culture in which people can develop these traits? Well, if you're in a place in which people care about each other and there is time and spaces for them to share, not because they are so good and they have so much free time, it's because someone has designed this in an intentional and strategical way, because they believe this is way more important than many of the other things that are being done in schools. There is time to read, to reflect, to have conversations. Haste and busyness do not rule us. Everything can be discussed, and voices can be heard, and decisions can be made collaboratively by stakeholders. It doesn't mean that everyone has to decide everything. But there's a lot of things in which we can involve. We'll talk more about this during the empowerment section. Absenteeism is not a problem. People enjoy their work. People collaborate. They work together. They are open to learn from each other. Veteran students serve the new students. They take care of them. They even take pride on taking care of the new children. Academic integrity is valued, and students admire a job well done. They want to be a person who does a good job. And finally, the motivations that drive people come from their own identity and integrity. They are and they feel trusted, even though this can only be done with how would you say this? Trust cannot exist if there is no risk. Many principals try to avoid risk. But if there's no risk, there's no trust. Because what are you trusting? In order for trust to exist, you have to risk something. You have to trust people. So if we come back to our image, I would say, hey, where are the keys? I would call it in the culture. And this involves the relationships, the autonomy, the motivations, the expectations, the trust, the peace, the modeling who we are in this school. No? And why do we think this image works? Or why do we think this is in the darkness and this is in the light? Well, mostly because here in the light, you have control over this. You can put this in a contract. You can demand this, and you can measure it, you can observe it. You cannot put in a contract of a teacher like, hey, I want you to unconditionally care for your students. I want you to have a loving, unconditional care relationship with the students. You cannot put this in the contract of a teacher. And there is no way in which you can verify this, no? Hey, I want you to try to be a true friend to your colleagues, to the people that you're belonging to this community. We will love that. You cannot demand this. No? But this is where the keys are. This is going to be what will lead us, these are the things that will lead us to promote a good character development in our students. And sometimes principals or teachers say, hey, Juan Pablo, you're more focused on the character of teachers and not in the character of students. We're here to talk about the character of students. Well, I agree with you. I'm focusing maybe a little bit more on the adults of the school, but it's because of this. This is another great quote by Tom Licona. The single most powerful tool that you have to impact your students' character is your own character. So you can choose. You either have teachers that are having fulfilling lives, that are thriving, that are growing in your school, that are becoming the best version of themselves, the person who they are called to be, or you need magical fairy dust to promote character education in your school. So, as Marvin usually says, if you don't have magic fairy dust, you need teachers who are okay. You need teachers who are growing. You need teachers who are developing themselves. 5, the seed approach. This is just another way of seeing it. Creating this climate or this culture is something similar to what we do. with seeds. No, a seed is a mysterious thing. We don't know what happens inside a seed. Right now, there's no AI, there's no technology, there's no company who can put together soil and water and produce an orange or an apple or a tomato or a potato or whatever. No, this is something that's kind of a mystery. Maybe we will find it in the future, but right now we don't know. What we do know and are very good at is creating the ideal conditions around a seed for it to bear fruit, for it to flourish. And it's pretty much the same with students. You don't know what a person needs to do to flourish, to become the best version of themselves, to develop virtue. This is something that each person has to discover in their own life. The good that we have to do with our lives is something that has to do with the intimacy and freedom of whom we are. This is not something that you can tell a student. What you can do is try to create the best conditions around the students for them to flourish. So we usually don't have bad seeds. If you have good conditions, a seed would flourish. And I think it's pretty much the same with students. Now, sometimes I find principals or teachers who see students that are like this flower over here, this sunflower, and they say, it didn't have enough willpower to flourish, no? Or so, sometimes they said, we didn't explain him or her what he or her needed to flourish. No? And it's not like that. Usually children are fine. I'm not denying that freedom exists and that even if you're in the best conditions possible, you can undermine your own life. But that's not usually the case. If people are in a good culture, in a place where they care for each other, in which people are not forced or imposed, in which people can have a voice, in which everyone cares for one another, in which there's time, people flourish. Number 6, hey, research says that if we want to promote this kind of culture or climate or ethos or atmosphere, we should look into design principles. So this is an invitation to going from what to who, why, and how. Design principles are ideas focused on how and why we do things and whom is doing them, than on what things should be done. It's not a big deal. I think that most of you, if I have a deep conversation of what you're already doing in your schools, I will agree because you're not crazy. And people usually do things that make sense. But there's a way in which you can redesign it to have way more fruit, you know, so that they can contribute to creating this kind of culture and climate that we're talking about. So instead of focusing on doing extraordinary things for character, which is something that most of you, I believe, are not able to do because you are not right now doing way more than what you can do. Let's focus on redesigning the ordinary things, the things that are already done in your community. But let's provide it with intentionality and strategy to promote the growth of people. So I believe the 11 principles of character.org work. And I think those can be considered in a certain way as design principles, but I'm way more a fan of the prime model. And I don't have time to present this, but we will talk about the E, the empowering principle, no, in the second part of this workshop. Hey, I'm sorry, this goes to the Amazon. There was a link. Number 7, leadership is key. If we do as in the paper, hey, let's do a backwards design. What are we trying to achieve? We want to impact the development of students. We have seen that in order to promote the impact of development of students, it's important. It's necessary and even sufficient to generate a cultural climate or ethos that does this. And to generate this culture, climate, or ethos, we need to design community according to some principles. So what is the key element in a school to design things in a certain way or in another? Well, you already know this, but it's the leader. This is why right now, from a strategic point of view, we are not doing teacher courses, for example, like Tara and I, because we believe that the order of things is first to win the leaders for this cause. And then they can help us to win the teachers and the families and the students. But if we have teachers and we invite them to redesign the schools, they will be faced by people who don't understand them, and they will crash. And we have some examples and stories of people who have gone through these courses and come back to their schools, and sometimes they even get fired because they find themselves in a very awkward and uncomfortable position in which they have to tell the principal what they have to do. And what does the principal usually say? Hey, why don't you become the principal? Go and go work somewhere else. Leave us alone. No school is leader-proof. Good leaders will make them flourish, and bad leaders will kill them. This is an element. We had a previous conversation with Elizabeth and Stacy before I entered this general, and we were saying this, hey, if we don't have leadership willing to promote this, there's not really much that we can do to promote a culture in a school, a climate. You can do things in your classroom. Number 8, there's no magic recipe. There is not a general solution that will work for every school anytime. No. Each community has its own problems, resources, and challenges. And what needs to be done there to transform its culture in a particular solution is a particular solution. And that solution must be flexible enough to adapt to a rapidly changing world, which are most of the problems that we're finding on research and also visiting schools and dealing with principals. Well, most of the times they're being told what they have to do, and it's something that is fixed and comes from administration, from the network or whatever, and they don't have a saying in this. And sometimes they have to wait until the next 4 or 5 years until they develop a new strategy, and this is not adapting to a rapidly changing world. So we're promoting, instead of a traditional approach in which we have general and rigid solutions, in which we tell leaders what they have to do, and it's also a model of control and accountability. Hey, let's pass to a not so traditional approach in which we believe, hey, there are particular and flexible solutions for each community. We'll have to see which are those. And instead of telling leaders what to do, there's no one better prepared. There's no one in a better position than the leader of the school to know what has to be done there. They know the teachers, they know the families, they know the students, they are living there in the place. Why would you have a better perspective or view on what has to be done? Trust the principals or help them. Give them resources, make them build a community like the one you're developing in this course. Because then leaders will develop what it takes to lead effectively in their own circumstances and to make a good diagnosis of what's happening, and then have a plenty resourceful kit of many things that can be done. And finally, there's accountability here, but it's trust. Instead of control and accountability, there's trust and accountability. I would love to go through this idea, but I think I have to pass because we won't have enough time later. Number 9, character education is not an option. Some people ask us, but Juan Pablo, do you really believe that we have to do character education? And I'm telling them, hey, this is the wrong answer. This is not something that you can either choose to do or not to do. You cannot not educate character. The mere presence of an adult influences the character of children, much more if they have such a close relationship, such as teacher-student, in which, as we said at the beginning, sometimes they spend more time with their teachers than with their parents. There's no off switch for character education. We're always influencing. If you have a chance, please read this book, because I think it's one of the best that has been written on education in the last decades. And the first sentence of the book is, we teach who we are. You can either be teaching math, science, English, or whatever. You won't be able to avoid teaching who you are. You may try to pretend at the beginning, but people will get to know you. And students are very smart. And this will have a huge impact on those children. So what we're looking at, there's a problem with the principles. There are character flaws that are difficult to tell a friend, let alone a boss. Hey boss, you lack humility. You're not listening. You distrust people. You're a perfectionist. You're a paternalist. You coerce people. You don't respect their freedom. You're not being able to forgive. You want to control everything. So this is not something that usually happens just to principals. This happens to every human being. So the problem about being the boss, the problem is that being a principal is that you're in a position in which it will be very difficult for someone to tell you that this is going on. So, and what usually, and we have this problem. Your actions speak so loud that I can hear what you say. So if you're leading and you're not aware that you're having these struggles and that you need to improve this, we have a problem. I believe that the best way to become aware of these things and find solutions is what you're already doing, becoming a community of peers. You're more willing to listen and to see yourself through the eyes of your peers. And if you become friends, which would be way more better than being a peer, that's amazing, no? That's a great way for you to get to know each other and to improve in this way. And finally, this is more a marathon than a 100-meter race. If you have a chance to read the article, you have this figure at the end of it. So we've been talking with the school principals from St. Louis, Missouri, that have been going through this change and who have really achieved becoming a national school of character and changing their cultures. And we asked them, hey, how much time does it take for you to change the culture of your school? So the mean is around 5 years. No, there's some schools who've done it in 3 years, some of them 7 years, but this is something that is not going to happen in a month or two. This is not something that can very rarely happen at the end of the first year. This will take time and patience. And we can discuss this, but it is more effective to spend enough time on their own personal transformation, rethinking their community design, and respecting the time needed for the rest of the community to buy in this change than to rush things. Because I believe that you already have experience of this. You have already experience of rushing things in your schools, and you already know where this gets you. Gets you to the exact same place that you were before. So I think we're on time. No, or I'm even ahead of the schedule. No, we have 5 more minutes before the break, but I believe we can take it now. If it's okay with the organizers, we can take 5 minutes and then we have a 10-minute conversation. Is it okay, Mark?
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you very much for your patience.
Could you go back to the previous slide?
Of course.
Yeah.
This one or the other one?
No, the other, not that one. Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. With the chat now.
Well, Pablo, what time did you want everybody back?
Maybe 55, 4:55.
That sounds great. Yeah, I had a question for you, Juan Pablo. In your article, you mentioned that you have your participants conduct a servant leadership survey for their staff to take to get feedback. As you mentioned in the previous slide, you talked about how hard that is for people to share that feedback, especially when you're in a position of power and you're supervising other people. Do you have access? Is that a free survey, that servant leadership one that you mentioned in the article, or is there a way to get access to that survey?
Yes, of
The
course.
servant leadership one to get feedback?
I can send the article to you. It's an open access article and it includes the questions at the end. If you give me 1 second, I will look for it and put the link in the chat group. So I think it's here. So I think we're on time. No, we should continue, or do we wait, Mark?
I think we can get rolling.
Okay, and how would you like to proceed? Would you like us to stay here, everyone, and have a general discussion, or would you like to go into groups? What are you more used to?
I think we're pretty fluid. We can go either way. It doesn't matter to me personally. I kind of like to do the whole group if we could.
Okay, so let's stay here. And someone would like to say something. I think I have talked enough. Someone else wants to have the floor. Maybe
I
if
guess
I
I got
go.
a question about Pablo. I know there's a lot of turnover in leadership. Could you talk about, and I've read somewhere that a sign of you talk about culture and how culture, how important culture is, and it takes, anywhere from 3 to 7 years to develop this. But what happens when the principal leaves? What do you have those conversations with your participants in your
Yes.
programs, and what are some ways that you suggest they overcome those
Usually
challenges
when we do this whole year program, each month we give them an assignment, and these 8 assignments during the whole year are a plan to change the culture of a school in these 3 to 7 years. One very important assignment is a sustainability plan. It's a plan for, hey, what happens if next year you're no longer the principal? How can you build structures? How can you have a backup plan? How can you help other people? Do you know who's going to be the next leader of your community? How can you include him or her in this plan so that we don't have everything falling apart each time the principal changes? And there's a lot of things that can be done in this sense.
Do you say have a backup or have 3 backups? So maybe they'll all be there in 2 years.
Totally. I agree with you, Richard. And it has happened. We've been doing this course, and many times one of the principals becomes the new administrator or the new leader of the school network or whatever, no? But they have put things into place, and they have pieces, and they have key participants in their schools that they can continue that work. So, but I agree. Let's have several backup plans, not just one.
Juan Pablo, I have a question for you. Thank you so much for the information you've given us so far. It's been so great to hear. My question is, so obviously, like, you don't want to overwhelm a school with, 75 different initiatives, when then everyone doesn't want to do any of them. So how do you help schools identify kind of the 1 or 2 switches or changes that are going to have the highest impact for that particular community?
I believe this is something they're not. How would they find the 2 or the 3 or the one thing that they really need to make a difference in that school? I think this is something that you have to discover. And maybe the best way to discover that is, I think the design principle of empowerment, what we're going to see now, that would be my choice. This is the way in which we can discover which is going to be the best particular solution for a community, by hearing all the voices, by hearing all the voices in everything, in all the ordinary things that we are already doing, in this faculty meetings, in class, in family nights, or how do you call this when families come at night at schools? You have a name for this in the US, no? I don't remember right now.
Parent-teacher conference?
Yeah, parent-teacher conference, no? We can redesign all this for all the voices to be heard. And I think this is the best way to find the truth, the best possible solution. But we will go through it in a few moments. Thank you, Ariane, for this question. Could you show the template for the sustainability plan you have your participants complete? Showcase of learning. So the sustainability plan that we invite them to do, it's something that it's owned by the Center for Character and Citizenship. So it's something that I'm not free to share, but if you, because we have a licensing agreement, but I don't think there's a problem if you ask Marvin for that. I think he will be willing to share it. And Scott Meyer says, showcase of learning. What's that? What do you mean, Scott Meyer? I cannot hear you. You're muted. Or maybe if you write it down, no problem.
Oh yeah. Oh, we got it.
Here it is.
Sorry, we got kicked out of our meeting here. The showcase of learning was just another term when we were what you asked a question about parent-teacher conferences, or it was just another activity that we do to share the successes that we have here at Woodlands. We call it a showcase of learning.
Amazing. It's a great thing to do. I totally agree. Did you agree with everything that I said? Because sometimes in Spain, people are reluctant to some of the ideas presented here. Is there anything that make noise to you? Is there something that you think can be said in a different way?
No, I think you've done a great job.
Okay.
Hey, Juan Pablo, I do have one other question. I saw a survey recently, universities, I can't remember how many universities were asked. I think it was a pretty big survey. I think it's like 85% of faculty believe that virtues education or character education is important. Do you have experience working at that next level, post-secondary, with character education? And are there any institutions that are doing a really good job with character education with their university students?
At the university level. So promoting character education at the university level.
Yes, correct.
Right now I'm writing a paper with Aitor. It's one of his doctoral dissertation papers, and we're analyzing some of the things that are already being done. The ones that I like the most are the ones that are involving residential community centers at university level. I mean, you can do a lot of things. You can have maybe collaborative governance. You can have these great books readings and stuff that I was mentioning, service learning. There are many things that are already being done to promote our curriculum. Many universities have this curriculum thing about character. But the thing about building a culture, a climate in which people can help each other and do this kind of thing that we were talking just before, this has a lot of strength when people is in a living in a residential community, because you're having that impact constantly in the morning, at breakfast, at lunch, at dinner, and during the weekends, during the activities, during the get-togethers, during the celebrations, during the artistic activities. I don't know. Those are the ones. And I would say the best expert in this is Aitor, if you have a chance. And also Marvin is being his doctoral supervisor with this humble servant. And yes, maybe this is a thing. If you're interested, we can have a conversation in some other time.
I have something to add about, you asked if we just like agree with everything or if there's some things that are still in question. I don't not agree, but I question this idea of, so in that early video, it was like a man was talking and he was like, until we discovered character education, right? Or like, and this is maybe more of like a theoretical or philosophical question, since we had the philosophers here. Does it not exist unless you can name it? Or is it like character education? Right. And maybe it's like there an element of like consciousness in the way that it's executed. But sometimes I know there's that idea that like, we're introducing this thing, but this thing has been there. Maybe it hasn't been called character education. And I'm just wondering like your thoughts on that and how it might show up in different places. And how this discovery of, character education isn't like necessarily like a new thing,
Totally. I totally agree with you, Lauren. And I think I have a small video that I will show later about this. Hey, when you don't know why you're doing, I think this is from Aristotle, that if you don't know how to say it, you don't really know it. You need to have words, no? If you don't have words, then you don't really know. If you cannot explain it, no? This is why students sometimes in their exams, they say, oh, I have it in the tip of my tongue. I know it, teacher. I said, well, if you cannot say it, you don't really know it, and you will have a bad grade. No? So it's very hard for you to motivate or to know. It's very different when someone knows their why. Suddenly they can do exact the same thing, but they do it in a very different way. You know? So we will discuss this later, I guess. Is it okay with you all if we continue? Do you feel strong enough to, no? This way we can have a longer conversation at the end. I'll try to go through this as quick as possible because what I like the most is having these conversations with you. So, as you can see, this is the cover of the new Prime book that we have just released. And we do if you remember the joke of the keys in the darkness and the light, this is why, you see, you can feel this, you can see this very well represented. And we put the keys have the letters of the Prime model, as which I think is something amazing because we did this with AI. And you believe this? We wrote these things and asked the AI to do this book cover for us. And then we had a student who made some small changes, and that was it. So, well, the Prime model, we cannot go through all of it. I really suggest that you have a chance to read this book and go through it. It's quite inspiring. But we will go into empowerment. No, and just before we begin with this, I would say, and this maybe you have heard this before, no? Because many people say, hey, JP, thank you. This is great. I love it. Would like to implement this character education thingy, but my plate is full. As Ariane was just saying, we have already another 70 things that we have to do in our school. Teachers cannot do one more thing. There is no room in my plate. So the presentation that I just showed you is an invitation to think differently on this. Promoting the character development of the members of your community is not another thing on your plate. It is the plate. It is the plate that sustains everything else that is being done in your school. It is the plate that nourishes everything else that is in your plate. You cannot go through, not even academically, without this. You cannot thrive. So please remember this. This is not about doing something else. This is not another thing on your plate. So empowerment, if you go to the Prime book, it would say at the beginning, hey, empowerment is about sharing power with all the stakeholders, but especially with students. Create structures, times, and processes for voices to be heard and matter in the life and school in a meaningful ways. Enhance the democratic nature of the classroom and the school. And we believe if you want to do this, for this to have an effect in students, you need to do this with students. But there is no way that your teachers will do this with students if you don't do these things with them first. Because it will be all off a shade if you go otherwise. You cannot expect that your teachers will treat their students differently from the way that you treat them. So let's talk a little bit about the core essence of this from maybe a philosophical point of view or from a sociological point of view, okay? Metaphysical, you would say. The first service owed to others when living in community is to listen to them. Power and empowerment can be words that have very different meanings in many cultures, no? As Wittgenstein or Joseph Peirce, I don't know which philosopher was, this phrase that says words mean what they mean because we use them like we use them, no? So maybe in your culture, in your country, or in your state, empowerment is used in a certain way. For us, it has mostly to do with voice. The power that we're inviting you to give students, teachers, and every stakeholder is to have a voice, to be listened, to have some sense of autonomy, to have autonomy indeed, to be able to make some decisions, to take the reins, the lashes of their life, being able to have assume some leadership role somehow. So we will explain the theory behind this, no? If we want to look from a psychological point of view, The self-determination theory, STD, by Deci and Ryan, has many good things, but among them, there are like 3 basic psychological needs to grow as a person. Hey, these are 3 things that every child, teenager, adult, or whatever needs to grow, to become their person they're called to be. So one is autonomy. If you are a person that is always doing what someone else tells them to do, it's very difficult that you grow as a person. You need to be able to make some decisions. You need to be able to fail. You need to learn from your failures, and you need to risk. You need to be who you are. You cannot be living the life that someone else has given you, or has told you that you have to live. The second one is belonging. Hey, if you don't belong, we're social in nature. We can only thrive and become who we are called to be in a community. We're not, it's so natural to go solo on this life quest, And if you're not in a community in which people care for you, in which you're important, if no one misses you, if you're not there, if you don't miss anyone, if they are not in the community at the time, it's very difficult for you to thrive or to grow or to flourish. You need to matter in that community, and others need to matter to you. And finally, competence. We have to do mostly in our jobs. We need to do something that helps us grow, something that we can always do better, something that we can improve, something that let us have some initiative, something that can be perfected in some way. If our job is always the same repeatedly and there's no room to growth, this is not a good thing. We need that. And most of it's our job, because that's what we will dedicate most of the time of our life. And if we are not doing the good that we can do with our lives, then that life tends to be somehow limited or constrained by those limitations. So if you have a chance to read this book by Parker Palmer, he has this theory of knowledge approaches. He presents the one that he thinks is more traditional, the objectivist myth. And then he presents another one that he proposes called the community of truth. So let me explain them a little bit and see if you agree that this is the most traditional, the one that we have been grown in with. And let's see what you think about it, So in this model, we have things exist, they're objects, and we usually have experts who study the objects, And then don't have like this close relationship. They're usually really far. These lines here represent that the experts don't really get to know absolutely the truth and the knowledge of the object, but they're really good at it. And then the experts in a magnanimous and very generous way transmit the knowledge of the objects to the amateurs. In an educational point of view, this could be the subjects that we study. These are the teachers, and these are the students. Note that in this model, the amateurs or the students are not trying to get in touch with the objects. And in many places, they don't really care. They just care about, if you have a scenario, I don't know if this happens in your schools. At my university, it happens more often than I would like to, but we have students that really don't care. They just want to have a paper saying, hey, I have been graduated from this great university. They don't care about learning. They don't care about knowledge. So they have teachers telling them all these things, and they have to remember all these things, and they have to accumulate them until the day of the exam. Then they spill them, and then by night they go and get drunk, and they forget about everything. And that's university in many places. And it's such a sad thing for us as educators, because you think, hey, what am I doing with my life? Am I really giving something good to the society? What's the sense? What's the purpose of this? But this can also happen at work. We have a boss, and the boss usually is the one who's thinking about the problems, thinking about the solutions and what has to be done. And he usually tells all the people who are below them what they have to do. And people don't usually care about the things, what's happening. They just say, hey, I'm here to do what you tell me that I have to do. So in many ways, this can be a problem. Maybe the further slides will show this when we go to the rental car example. But wait for me and I will tell them later. What's the other approach, the other theory of education approach that Parker Palmer proposes? Hey, let's put in the center the subjects. This is not something that is way far away for us, like in the clouds. This is something that we can reach. And instead of having experts and amateurs, let's have knowers. And the knowers are all around the subjects. And also look that every knower has a particular relationship with the subject. This doesn't mean that every knower is equal to the other knowers. First thing. Second thing, this doesn't mean that the relationship that each knower has with the subject is the same as the other knower has. So we may have, like, for example, in a classroom, maybe the teacher is a knower who has a very deep and long-term relationship with the subject of math, or with sociology, or with human rights. But this doesn't mean that the students doesn't have also a relationship with that subject. They have also been thinking about human rights and what is fair and what is not and what's justice. They also have something to say about this. The teacher, as the knower, does not exhaust the knowledge of the subject. Secondly, look that all the knowers have a particular relationship with other knowers. And this is like the channel through which they communicate their own relationship with the subjects. For example, I might be saying here the same words. I'm saying some words, no? And all of you are hearing me. Aitor, with whom I have a very long-term relationship, we have been talking a lot about these things. The words that I'm saying mean way different thing for him than from Lauren, with whom I've been having 2 or 3 meetings right now. And maybe it's way different from what Elizabeth, with whom I just met today. And if I talk with my brother, they will mean a whole different thing, because relationships condition our transmission of the knowledge. So in this community of truth approach, if we really want to know the deep truth of things, it's very important, first, to invite every knower to have a close relationship with the subject, and also to nurture the relationship between the knowers, because this will condition how they can share. Have you ever heard about the wise blind man and the elephant? This is a traditional tale in India. No, so these are wise blind Indian men who want to know what an elephant is. No, so one of them approaches and touches the tail, and he says, "Oh, I know what the elephant is. The elephant is a rope." But the other one is touching the stomach, and he says, no, I know what the elephant is. The elephant is a wall. The other one is touching one of the ears and says, no, the other one is, how do you say abanico in English? It's Chinese ventilation, whatever. The other one is touches one of the legs, and he says, no, the elephant is a tree. And the other one is touching one of the forks, no, the teeth, one of the, someone help me in the, well, whatever, you know what, touching the tusk, thank you. And the other one is touching the trump, no, and he says, well, no, the elephant is a snake. Is any one of them wrong? Not necessarily. Each one of them has a piece of it. If they think that they have the truth, then we might have a problem. If we approach this from no, they are all right and they are all wrong in a certain way. If we were in a community of truth approach, this will really help us to get to know what the elephant is. But if every wise man think, no, I'm the expert and I'm the one who is relating with the elephant, I'm the one who's really touching it, so I really know what the elephant is, then we'll have discordance and separation and polarization. And everyone will think, no, they're wrong. They don't know what the elephant is. Am I saying that this objectivist myth is deplorable and this is something that we should avoid? No, I'm not saying that. I would say for technical stuff, maybe in many ways, this objectivist myth is something that can work. I mean, if one of you has cancer and he says, well, I want to figure out how to cure my cancer. Hey, let's make a community of truth and let's have my husband, and I have my brothers, and the doctor, and the teacher, and the priest, and let's all talk about how to cure the cancer. And I would say, hey, no, let's talk with the doctor. No, the doctor is the one who knows. No? Or if we have a demand, a sue, no, we will talk with the lawyer because that's the person who knows. So for technical stuff, maybe. This doesn't, I mean, this also has another point of view in which there can be many doctors that gather around and do a community of truth to see which is the best way to solve the cancer of this person. I think for things that really matter to us, the best approach is the community of truth, which is the practical stuff. The practical stuff, which is the one that has to do with morality, the one that has to do with searching for the common good. The best approach is the community of truth. So this is a site, this was one of my teachers in business school, and he just recently passed away. He was a great teacher, Luis Manuel Calleja, and he was the professor of collegial governance. And he always repeated, it has been proven that the most inefficient government of all is the collegiate government. Which all of us were expecting, like, hey, but you're saying that your collaborative governance model is the most inefficient. And he says, yes, it's the most inefficient, not the most ineffective. It's different. You know? Efficiency is usually the effectiveness above the time. Collegial government takes a lot of time. Doing what we show here of the community of truth, hey, let's gather, let's talk about things, let's come to an agreement. This takes a lot of time. This is not efficient. This doesn't mean it's not effective. So, which were the arguments that he used to say, hey, it's really worth it? No? Collegial government. He said three things. First of all, if you have a community in which things are worked this way, in a collegial way, this community stays together because these are our decisions. These are our community. We care for this because this is ours. So if you want people to have a sense of ownership, it has to be true. They cannot own things if they don't own it. Second, this is by way far the kind of government that promotes the growth of its members. Imagine how much can you grow if you're in a government in which someone is always telling you what to do. Well, obedience, it's something that can help you to grow in some way. But if you do collegial government, you're always being requested about the common good, how things can be done. You may not share the same solutions that the other people are having, and you have to come to agreements. And sometimes you have to lay back and accept and concede, and let's try it differently. And when you need to forgive, you need to say, to appreciate the other perspectives and points of view. So there are like a lot of opportunities for you to grow because you're exercising many dimensions of the person that will remain passive if you were in a vertical governance. And finally, this is not a strategy to win people over. Sometimes people, hey, this is having, in Spain, they call it having left hand. Left hand is like, yes, we're doing what you want, but somehow I'm trying to make them think that my solution was theirs, no? So they do what I wanted in the first place. It's not about that. It's not a technique. It's not a method. This is about, we are very convinced that this is the way to seek the deep truth of things. If you wanted to seek the deep things, the deep truth of things, this is the approach. The collegial approach, the community of truth approach. So this is the basis. Now I'm going to talk about certain examples, no? Maybe this also helps, like having the middle optimal point of virtue, no? In one extreme, I will have like, hey, we will do what I decide, no? You will do what I tell you that you have to do. I don't think this is a good approach. The other extreme is not good, no? Which is like, hey, everyone do whatever they want. I don't care. What's the middle optimal point? Let's search and decide together. Let's do this as a community, even though it may take time, because coming to agreements with a community takes time. We don't say that there's no order in this, but there are different kind of orders. There are orders that are organic, flexible, that involve trust. And there are other kind of orders in which there's a mold that everyone has to go through this mold. Everyone has to go through this filter. It's a rigid order. It's a controlled order. And finally, you can think about this. If you're really, people usually invite principals to think if they're promoting a community or an association in their schools. Communities formed by relationships that are considered as ends in themselves, with all the stakeholders, not just with the students or with the teachers of the community. The most important thing in this community are the persons, all of them. In an association, that's not true. The most important thing in an association are the results. And results are above people. And if we're not getting good results, people is fired, people is expelled, and people is thrown out. This leads to individual interests. This leads to common interests. So this is a good question that you can try to discuss with your community and with your, or maybe in the second part of this workshop today. So now talking about specific things of empowerment, I think many of you might have this problem. Hey, you have your own mission, the mission of the school, or the principal, the leadership team has the purpose, the values, whatever, no? But you see that your community is not involved in this. They don't know what the mission is. They don't know what the values, and they don't really care about it, no? And they're just doing, just tell me what I have to do, no? And I don't care. And it's something that, hey, I wish my staff would be more committed, will have more passion for this work, will have more initiative. So we invite you to consider this. We don't usually worry about caring for, sustaining, or beautifying those things that are not ours. We usually do the bare minimum. For example, let's see, Lauren, have you ever rented a car? Yes, you have rented a car. Have you ever changed the wheels of a rented car?
No.
No, or changed the windshields, the wipers, or whatever. You don't usually do that, no? Okay, thank you very much, Lauren. Russell, if I ask you, have you ever stayed in a hotel? I think you have, okay. And have you started, if you arrive to the hotel and you see that the wall needed a little pass of painting, you went to the store, buy some paint and painted the walls of the hotel room?
I did not paint the walls of the hot tub, no.
And I think everyone will have a very same experience. And why? The reason is very simple, because it's not ours. We respect things that are not ours, but we're not really about caring for them, sustaining or beautifying those things. If you want people to get really passionate about it, it has to be part of them. So how do we solve this? Well, part is co-design and co-creation. Involve the community in the discernment and development of its identity. Hey, let's talk about who we are. Let's talk about what we want to do as a community. Let's talk about what is important for us. Let's come to an agreement. And don't be afraid of doing that. Some people think, mostly the Catholic schools that I work with, they are afraid that people will start saying evil things that will turn them into non-Catholic. Come on, that's not true. And if it's true, then maybe that's the reality of your community, you know? So you need to accept it, because the other thing is just pretending. It's just something that you put on your website. It isn't true. So if you want, this book is full of resources of how to do this collaboratively in a school, and it has like processes of how to do this by little groups, the questions, and it has examples. I think it's nice if you want to have some examples of this, because I don't have enough time to go through it. So the difference between, this is what we were discussing. I don't know who asked this question, no? Between knowing what you're doing and knowing why you're doing these things. It was you, Lauren, no? About having the words to say the things. If you don't have words to say, if you're not aware of this, the way you do things change rapidly. So no one has seen this video, right? I hope, no one has seen it. Okay, I will show it fastly. It's just 2-3 minutes. You will see, this is a guy who's being asked, well, no, just see it and that's it.
So you're a musical director?
Yes,
Cool.
sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved
that bro could sing. You know what I'm saying? All right. Now, once you give me the version, is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick. If you know which version I'm talking about, just see if that exists. Let me see what you got. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Right now I'm found, was blind, but now I see. Now, okay. Here's what I want you to catch. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time, he knew why he was doing it.
So knowing why we're doing things is so important. If we don't have that into our schools, into the people working with us, I don't know why is this going. Here it is. It's very hard for them to commit. And sometimes this is because we have not given them the voice to try to put words into what's inside of them. Sometimes, as I was saying before from Aristotle, no? If you don't know how to say it, you don't know it. And you have to try to say it. And sometimes you have to give the chance for people to say this. And you have to give them the chance to share with others what they want to say. So I would like to tell you a story about this is something that Mark asked for, like, hey, you do any service or questionnaires or whatever. We have a very, I don't know if it's a strong adult culture questionnaire. I will show them to you. And we invite principals to do this so that they can really listen to the staff, to what's happening. So here are the questions that we give them. How are decisions made in your school? Who makes them or has meaningful input? How do the staff feel about this system? How are staff hired? Who has input? How are new staff welcome to the school and socialized? Who does this? How do you help new staff to be and feel competent? How are staff conflicts resolved? Who does it? How do staff members feel about this? What are the adult subgroups in your building? Who hangs with whom? What are the fault lines? Which groups do not get along? Is there an active naysaying oppositional group? Who are they and how do they impact the school? What do you do about them? We also include another one if there's a group who is favored by the principal or the leadership team. So what do you think might happen in your school if you apply this questionnaire? With these open questions in which people can write stuff. No, it's not just choosing a multiple choice thing. So our experience is in most of the schools, that I would say more than 90%, half of the staff is pissed. Half of the staff is exhausted. Half of the staff believes this is unfair. Half of the staff is hurt. And sometimes they are even angry. And they let you know it. They put it there. So, and principals, even though we told them that this is going to happen, they get very surprised, no? Because they get really hurt, or they get very surprised to see that there are people that they're living with and sharing their lives who are hurt in some ways and they didn't even knew it, no? So, could someone please put the link to the slideshow in the chat? I missed it this morning. Don't worry, I will put it back at the end. Just please remind me at the end and I will put it back. So, you're welcome, Krisha. So they received this. So, for example, one of the stories, later on, I received a call from a principal, and she says, "Hey, I don't know what to do. I received this, and I'm very shocked because I have half of my staff angry, disappointed, or resented with the school culture and what has been happening these years. And what do I do?" And we asked her, "Hey, Maria, her name is Maria, and it's fine. She told me that I can tell her story. What do you think you should do?" And she said, "Well, right now I'm trying to figure out if I have to present the results of the survey. Do I make them public or not? What do I do?" And we asked her, "Hey, how would you feel if you were working in a place, you fulfill a questionnaire, and you don't get any results back? Would you like that?" And she said, "You're right. I have to make this public." And we asked her, "Hey, are you going to show everything? Or just like the big results? Are you going to share every comment that is here? Because this is strong stuff." And she said, "I believe I have to be transparent about this. And I think people will appreciate it." So she asked us for help, and we helped them prepare the session. So they were in this kind of a classroom. It was more like a living room, and they have a big PowerPoint, and everyone was seated like in a kind of circle. It was not like an auditor or whatever, no, an auditory. And she said, "Hey, I've been doing this character education course. They have encouraged us to listen to staff, and people can say what they really think. And I think this is a way for us to have a good diagnostic of how are we and what we can do about it. So here are the results." And she started showing all of them directly from Google Forms. So they know that there hasn't been no changing the responses. And she respected each and every one of the comments, and she read them in the same tone, not making fun, not making any cynical denotation or whatever. And Maria says, "You cannot believe the silence that happened. No one was moving, not even a fly was moving in the room." And they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe not the answers. People already know this, because they're part of that community. They couldn't believe that you were showing this to all of them and that you were being so vulnerable, because this really puts you in the spot. By the end of the presentation, she says, "Hey, I've been the principal for 3 years. I'm working in this because I really believe in education. Previously, she was been the director of a turbodynamic airplane thing enterprise, and she quitted that job to help a school. And she said, I'm really trying to make this good. But as you can see, I'm not achieving it. And I think that part of the problem is that I'm trying to figure it out all by myself, or I'm trying to figure it out only with the 3 vice principals. I think maybe what we have to do is try to work this out together." So I invite you, all of you, they were like 50 teachers, and you said, "I want to make a group that we start having conversations of what's happening to us and how we can solve this." And everyone can be in this team. I don't care if we are the 50 of us, then we will work it out some way. If it's just 3 or if it's half of it. Anyone who wants to join this stream is free, and please write me an email by the end of this week. And she said that she went to her office, and before the end of the day, the 2 greatest enemies of the staff, the 2 women that were against her in everything, that were the leaders of the opposition, you would say, came to her office separated, and they said, "Maria, I cannot believe what you have done. I want to apologize because I didn't fill out the questionnaire. I thought that this was just another stupid thing that we were doing that wouldn't work at all. And after seeing what you did, I really regret it. I want you to count with me on this team, and I really want to help you, to achieve this." So she said, "Hey, I don't know what else I will achieve with this course, but just with this, I'm very happy, This has been worth it, And this is a good example. We have other stories that we can share with you, but we don't have enough time. We don't encourage you to do this as part of an isolated activity. If you do this, this is a very strong intervention. If you do this, this has to be part of something bigger and part of a biggest plan, or a plan that is planning to change the culture in several years. is not something that should be done lightly. This is a phrase by the founder of my university, a priest called Saint Josemaria Escrivá. And it doesn't matter what I say this phrase. I've been using it in Colombia, in Asia, with people from South Africa, with people from Europe, or from the public system, from the private system, from the charter system, from the Catholic, from the non-Catholic, whatever. No, and not only in schools, also in universities and also in university residence halls. There is no peace. There's an appearance of peace, balance of fears, fragile commitments. Many principals in many countries have said, hey, this phrase really represents what's happening in my community. There's an appearance of peace. I mean, we're not in open war. We're not fighting each other. But we have already renounced the many things that are important for us. We're not really committed here. We're doing the minimum that has to be done. And I will stay here until 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. and I will go home. And if there's a crisis or if there's a problem, it's your problem. And you will stay here in the weekend or whatever solving. And this is what many principals really regret. I would like to have people who enjoy their job, who wants to be here, who wants to be a part of it, who dream about their job. But what I'm having is an appearance of fears, balance of fears. You don't want to quit. You don't want to expel me, or you don't want to fire me because you will have to pay for me. I don't want to be fired, but we're not into this together. This is just an appearance. I would love to show this video, but it's very long. You will have it when you say, if you have not seen this class meeting video, it's amazing. It's a 16-minute video of a tremendous good teacher doing a very good class meeting about teasing or bullying. I really encourage you to see it. This is something that can be done with students. And this is a lot like reaching them. But I insist, this is not something that I encourage you to do unless this is the way. Show this video. And after you watch this, think with your staff, hey, is this the way in which we, the adults of the school, talk about the things that matter to us? Is this the way in which we solve problems? Is this the way in which we relate to each other and talk about the things that are important for us? If you don't do that, then you cannot pass to do this with students. It will fail because they will see right through it. That is just an appearance. If you want to have the link, yes, you will have the link in the presentation, but if you want, what I can do is give you the link in the chat right now. So just in case I forget. So here it is. And I think we have reached the end of the presentation. We have 15 minutes to have a conversation. If this is something that I usually do, but we don't have to do it if you don't want to, no? At the end of my classes or the workshops, I invite the participants to think at least of 3 things, 3 ideas. Maybe it's things that you have thought about, maybe it's something that you have listened to someone else, maybe it's something in the chat, maybe it's some phrase of the presentation. But these are like takeaways, things that you won't like to forget from today. And maybe we can discuss about them. We can give 2 or 3 minutes in silence, as we did at the beginning, and then just discuss this.
Can you go back to the elephant slide, JP?
Yes, I can go back. Okay.
Or were you going to something else? Sorry.
I was going to the place where there's the QR code, so you can have
okay.
access to the presentation.
Real
But let
quick,
me do this
I
first.
just wanted to take a picture of it.
There it is. You got it? Yes.
Got it.
Great.
Yep, got it. Thank you.
There it is. So again, we're very happy to share all this. Hope this helps you in any way. And also, if you want to get in touch with us and have longer conversations, we're also willing to help you in any way. The used car analogy, vulnerability, co-designing, co-creating. Thank you very much, Mark. These are great takeaways.
Yeah, it would be great to hear other people's 3 takeaways in the chat, or come on off mute and share them out loud.
As you prefer. Future Katie raising her hand. Is this your name, or this is just the name that appears here, Future Kane?
I get that often. That is my real name on my birth certificate, given by my parents many years ago.
Really?
Yes.
This is the first time?
Yes. Thank you.
Name.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
So my question is, you put a picture on, and it keeps reminding me of several of the pictures that you put regarding the light and the dark, and then the new cover for the book, and then the communities of practice of what we do, of more like sage on the stage, and I'm the expert and you take in my knowledge, instead of understanding that there are many experts, and even those who aren't deemed experts are also experts in their own regard. And how do we sit in places to co-create? So my question is, in all the time that you have done this work, how often have you seen people and communities or organizations move from a community where there are the experts giving the knowledge to we are all the subjects in the middle, and we are co-creating this together? And how much time have you seen that take?
Okay, so you're asking about how much time does it take for these experts to be convinced that they have to change this way? Not actually making the change, but having the experts on that community say, hey, maybe this is not the best approach. We should try to change it to the other one. Is this the question?
After you work with them, right? You come in, how have you seen it actually happen?
Yes.
Okay, and then how much time has it taken, and what's the impact then that they see? Because I'm sure you're well aware, there's not many communities of practice. That's not the norm. So to get humanity to move to that norm, we are beings of change that oftentimes don't like to change too often. So what do you see in your time of doing this?
Of course. Well, first I would say what I'm seeing in many places is that people is just so tired. They don't know what else they have to do. And they are very much aware that what they're doing is not the way. They are very aware, even though they're very convinced of many things. And it seems that the only solution is that we have to keep trying doing the same old thing once and over again, doing stronger, and just keep doing, which is a very good this definition by Einstein of craziness, no, or of insanity. Doing the same thing, expecting different results. So when they see that they are pretty much in that spot, and they say, hey, I need to find a different discourse. I need a different narration of what's happening to the school and to me and to the people involved here. And once they hear this speech or this perspective or this point of view, things start to make sense in another way. They start to understand reality in a different way. And we think the best way to do this is being part of a community who is struggling through the same things. The thing that I usually ask the people who are in courses similar to what you're doing right now is if you're really becoming a community, you among yourselves. For me, the strongest experience that I can have for a principal during VLAs or during the Primed Institute is to show them during the courses the way that I want them to be when they come back to their schools. And they see, hey, I'm not asking you to do something different, something else. What you have experienced here, do the same thing once you go back. It's not that hard. And they start to realize that they can do it, and then that they can share. And also the other thing, we design these experiences in a way that they build strong relationships. I would say that the principals are participating with us, even though it has passed some years, they become friends. And a friendship is such a strong relationship, is the ideal relationship for a community of practice because people care for one another. And it's beautiful to see principals seeing sometimes they think about the other school as the competence and something that they have as an enemy, as someone that you have to overwhelm so that you can thrive. They're starting to put themselves at the service of these other schools, and they're helping each other, and they're discovering way more things, and they're having more resources. So this is something that can happen, and we're seeing it happen. The thing is that it takes time, future. It takes time. So it's not the usual thing. It's not, and it's also something that you cannot impose the rhythm, you cannot mandate it, you cannot put it in a contract. It's something that you have to wait for people to become part of it. You have to invite them, you cannot force them. So you need to have a lot of trust. And sometimes it can fail. Yes, it can fail, but in those places that have failed, usually people then tend to go somewhere else because they feel that this is not their place or the community that they want to build. And this is usually the schools that take 7 years to change the culture. But I don't know, if you want to have examples of people who are changing this, I will go to the Center for Character and Citizenship. Marvin has a lot of examples and a lot of stories. And the staff that he has right now working in his leadership teams are principals that went precisely through it, Kristen Pelster, Amy Johnston, Julie, I don't remember her last name, but these are amazing principals that did amazing things. And they did it by being part of this community, by learning, by going through these courses that you're doing right now. And you can learn a lot from their experience. I don't know if I've answered this well. There's not an easy answer, future. I'm sorry.
No, it's not easy, but thank you.
You're welcome.
You did awesome. Thank you.
Well, Pablo, one of the things you mentioned, it takes up to 7 years to change culture, and I think part of that is sustainability. And we talked briefly about it earlier, but what do you, and I know you can't share the template, but what are some of the keys that you've seen schools implement to create that sustainability over a period of time?
One thing that I really suggest, but maybe this doesn't depend on you, but you can do some movement to figure this out. You should know who is going to succeed you. You should know who is going to be the next principal. And you should take steps to prepare this person. If you know in advance, like 3 years before you end up being the principal and you retire or go somewhere else or have another job, what would you do with this person in these 3 years? Would you do shadowing? Would you mentor this person? Would you lead them to have some courses similar to what we're doing right now? If we did that, when they become the principal, there won't be a shock in the school culture. There won't be a shock in the way things are done. This is by far the way in which I think this can be, if there has to be a change of principles. And then also another thing is not having this increased rotating system in which in some countries, principals need to change every 3 years by law, which is something that, hey, this is not helpful to build a culture. And sometimes in some places people say, hey, it's better to have a bad principal than having a new principal. Because need to change things, need to know another person, adapt to their personality. And this is just so much work that you have to do. It's such a crisis for a community that should avoid it. You should avoid it all the most that you can, even though it's not possible to avoid it all the time. Those are the two things that I think right now. Aitor, do you have any? Please, Aitor, interrupt me if you have another idea that you want to join, that you want to see.
I would say that the best way to be sustainable is precisely to build a culture. The thing that prevents those kind of crises are strong cultures. In fact, a good way to know if you have or not this kind of strong culture is what happens if the leader changes. If we are very afraid of these changes, it's because we have not a culture, no? And that's the key thing. In a good culture, the leader should not be that important. So this is a fast way to check if what we have here is a very charismatic leader or a good culture. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Heitor.
Can I ask a question then?
Yes, of
I
course.
think what is important is people's definitions of things, because we get into conversations and then we're not speaking the same language because we don't have the same definition. So when you're speaking, I hear you saying a couple of things. Good culture, I hear you saying, then seems synonymous with the leader, yes, leading, but the people could lead without the leader just helps to amplify it. So how do you define good culture? Because we all know we walk into any educational institution, there's a culture there.
Yeah.
Whether it's written, there's unwritten, there's always a culture. It might not be the culture you want or the culture that people believe they're embodying. So then how do you define what is good culture, or if you want to just put the label culture on it?
No. The way in which we define a good culture is the slide that we show. Hey, which are the cultural aspects that promote good character development? That's the kind of culture that we're talking about. Then, what is the role of a leader in building that kind of community? Building an horizontal kind of government, a collegial kind of government, a community of truth government. Building a community in which everyone is involved and it's invited to talk about the things that are important for us. In that kind of place, the leader is just another one. Is that the leader is the person who is at the service of everyone else so that they can grow. Instead of having this kind of organigram in which you have the leader in the top and everyone is below them, let's change this. Let's have the leader below. And the leader is the one who is at the service of everyone else so that everyone else can grow, so that everyone else can take the applause, so that everyone else can shine. In that kind of cultures, the leader is relevant in this sense. But if they're gone, that thing can be sustainable because everyone has been growing. If you have some cultures in which the leader is always telling everyone what they have to do, and they are only the only ones who are taking up the problems and the solutions, and everyone is obedient, but that people is gone, then everything crumbles, and everything has to start again. We're talking about a culture in which the leader is a servant is way more sustainable than one in which it's not.
Thank you, Juan Pablo. That it was a great note to kind of leave us on. It's exactly 11 o'clock and I want to be respectful of your time. I would love for people to just show some love for Juan Pablo in the chat, come off mute, any words of kindness or appreciation that they want to pass on. What a powerful presentation you have. Thank you so much on behalf of the LACCS team for your work and for your presentation of ideas. It was really great to have you. Anyone else want to just share an appreciation?
I want to show appreciation for all of you for getting involved in this kind of initiative. Thank you very much for having the patience to listen to us in our presentation. We're glad that we have been of service for you, and we hope to see you in the future.
Thank you, really appreciate it. Hey, Julie, do you mind putting our slides back up?
Let me stop sharing my presentation.
Thank you so much.
No, you're welcome.
And I hope you stay on for a couple moments, Juan Pablo, because people are blowing you up in the chat.
Okay. Muchas gracias, Juan. Thank you.
Mark has been sharing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. All right, so we would love to continue reflection with all of you. And what our LACCS team is going to offer is 2 different reflection tools. So Harvard has different thinking routines that the link is right there. It's called Project Zero Thinking Routines. And we are going to offer 2 for you today to be able to reflect with your group. Mark, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. I'm going to put these in the chat right now. So the 2 different thinking routines we're going to offer you today. The first is very simple, to be with your school community and to use the prompt, I used to think, and now I think. So sharing with your group what your thoughts were before you read Juan Pablo's article, and then before you heard him speak, and then what you're thinking about now. The other thinking routine we'd love to share with you is called the 4 C's. So with your group, you're going to share your connections. What connections did you draw today? Your challenges, kind of like what Lauren shared, what Future shared, any challenges that you have about what you heard or what you read, what key concepts you're walking away with, and what changes that you're suggesting to make to your school community based on what you heard today. So in the chat, you have both of the kind of full protocols that are explained. But what we're going to do now is offer you time with your school community for the next 20 minutes to be in your groups and reflect on today and the learning you did. So Julie's going to put us in school groups. And then that's going to be from, let's say, 11:05 to 11:25. And then we're going to come back for 5 minutes before lunch to kind of reflect whole group. Any questions or thoughts before you move into your school groups? All right, and for folks who are not here today with a school group but want to be put into a group to reflect with others, stick around and we'll make a group for kind of the single participants.
So the breakout rooms are open. If you have any trouble joining, let me know and I'm happy to move you. So you should be able to select your own room.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Julie. So go forth in reflection. Welcome back, everyone. I hope those thinking routines were helpful for you. I should mention these are routines that you can use both with adults, but with children too. So they're really helpful for classroom teachers to bring to their students. So we brought everyone back because we'd love to hear what your community was reflecting on after our morning of learning. So if anyone would like to share either out loud or in the chat, what was your reflection like with your team?
I can speak for me and Sharon. So, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks, Russell.
Okay, yeah. Well, I've been at Alverno since 1986, so I have this longer vision than someone who's been there 10 years, 20 years even. And so I think Alverno did this change. It didn't do it, the change that's being discussed here. It wasn't character education. It was ability-based education. I was not part of that change because that happened in the 70s. But I saw then Alverno as a community versus association. I saw that as a community. And Sharon and I agree that today we don't really see it so much that way. And I don't think it's anybody's fault. It's just that it used to be you would have meetings with people in other departments and they were in person. They weren't on Zoom. And there are just more people around in the hallways and just it was more of a community then. And so now we're forced to recalculate, re-engineer because just the times are changed and it's not that somebody made a mistake. It's simply that the times are different. Sharon, does that summarize it okay?
It does. I was just looking for the slide that Juan showed where he actually talked about here, community and association. And so, of course, we talked about a lot of other stuff before we narrowed our conversation to this. Yeah. But I did put something in the chat before we signed off about transparency and leadership, right? Which I think is really important if you're thinking of creating an environment where you have reflectiveness of that leadership. And so I shared with Russell how I live in a condo association. And as I was connecting the thoughts of community and association, we have individual interests here. And wouldn't it be wonderful if, as a community, as a body of people sharing this huge body of land on these properties, we had community interest, common interest. And so I took that and translated it to Alverno and started thinking, and he helped certainly make it clear for me because of his tenure, how I see if we take the students out of the equation, because when we put the students in the equation, we all have a common interest, right? But if we take the students out of the equation, we're looking at people who have individual interests. And so we're operating in an association behavior. And I believe, that really resonated with me. If it's formed by relationships that are considered as ends in themselves, we have a community. And I think that again stems where leadership is transparent. And so that was the gist of the second half of our conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Sharon. It's good to see you. Anyone else? What were conversations like with other school communities? What were your reflections from this morning?
St. Francis talked a lot about the ability and kind of what's the word I want? Not really freedom, but like the permission almost to slow down. Like, I think we're trying to put things into play and trying to maybe rush some things when we need to get more voices involved. We need to get all the buildings to have those conversations, that there's some other pieces on more of that plate than adding to the plate, and kind of being able to focus in on that. So I think we had a good conversation about just that concept.
Thank you, Amber. Thanks for sharing. Any last takers before we break for lunch? Well, we really appreciate your time and attention this morning. We really appreciate your reflections. And right now we are sending you off on your lunch break. So we have from 11:30 to 12:30 for lunch. We will see you back here promptly at 12:30, where we'll do an Energizer with Heather, and then we will do our breakout groups. Thank you, everyone. Have a great lunch break.
Bye.
Started on this. So here's what we're going to do as a way just to kind of get back into the day. So hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I am Heather. And what I'm going to invite you to do is to think about a time that you were chefing it up, right? You were cooking and maybe there was like a glorious moment, like you had this glorious meal that you prepared, or maybe perhaps it ended in catastrophe. Whatever the case may be, I want to invite you to grab something near you or throw up a picture or write a picture, draw something and put it up on the screen that represents that experience. Okay. So for example, I made a wonderful meal and I proceeded to fall asleep. So it burnt and all that was left was a napkin that we probably could have eaten, but we didn't. So what I'm going to ask you all to do is in a minute when other folks come back, just and you don't have to tell the story about it. You can just kind of put the object in the screen. And then if you want to put like a sentence that could be a title for your cooking glorious moment or your cooking catastrophe, you're welcome to just put your title in the chat. Okay? Clear? Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, everybody. And as always, this is an optional activity. And so if you chose to find an object, or if you have an image, or if you chose to draw a picture, I'm going to count to 3, and I'm going to ask you all to hold them up. And then when we're done doing that, just take a look at the chat and just respond to what people wrote in terms of the titles of their cooking, glorious cooking experience, or else a cooking catastrophe. Y'all ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Thank you. I see we have some glorious goulash from Chef Feaster and Chef Vetrano. Woo! Fancy first meal, Chef Vetrano.
Should probably say first and last.
Okay, everybody. And if you just sort of needed some time to ease back in, that's fabulous. And if you still want to add a cooking catastrophe or a cooking moment that was glorious, I invite you to do that in the chat. And then I'll just hand it over to Future and Katie. Lost lasagna. Oh, okay. Chef Krisha, lost lasagna. Oh, darn. Chef Amber forgot the sugar. Sometimes it's like that. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks so much, Heather.
Ariane, did you want to say something? Sorry.
I am passing it over. Thank you, Future and Katie. You are up next.
Okay, thanks. Thanks so much, Heather, for welcoming us back. So unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know how you look at this, I hold a multitude of emotions to just let everybody know. May retreat is coming soon. It's our last one until next school year, which is surprising and joy-filled and a multitude of emotions, as I said. So we want to come next time celebrating as we normally do, but even more. That one will be at night. So just heads up, the May retreat will be from 4:30 to 7:30. So a little bit different than what we experience on these virtual calls. What we are asking as a group is, can you all do a couple of things? The first ask is, can you please send to your coach by May 2nd a theme song? What is your theme song for this year? I know you've each experienced many beautiful things and seen a lot of growth. So we're asking for what your theme song is. There's a surprise coming with that, but we can't tell you what it is. So stay tuned for that in May. So theme songs, please, to us by May 2nd, and we will try to give you a reminder. The second ask that we're asking you to do is your Google slide. Every year in May, we celebrate, and we do that by having people showcase and tell us their story in anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes of the year. So we're just giving a friendly reminder that the team's Google slides for 3 minutes or shorter for a whole group presentation, or if you want to have one person just present for all of you on your new initiative, an item, a source of pride for you and your school district this year, any key highlights from your plan. Share those on the slide that you are going to present. It is one slide, and we're asking for those to be given to your coach by May 2nd so that we can compile those in our day time that we have together that evening, 4:30 to 7:30 as a friendly reminder. Can we go to the next slide? A lot of people oftentimes will be like, well, what do we put on the slide? What you put on the slide is what you want to put. There is no, this is exactly how to do it. We want people to do it the way that feels good to them. This is one example of what has been done in the past, but it doesn't necessarily have to even have any pictures. It doesn't have to have this many pictures. So whatever you want it to be, what stands out to you, what you want to share with us as a community is what we are looking for. But this is just one example of many that we've seen over the years. I just want to pause to see if anybody has any questions before Katie talks more about who is coming to share space with us next week. And if you have any questions that you don't have right now, please feel free to just email us or chat us. Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for that, Future. It's going to be an awesome evening, the last retreat in May, full of joy and celebration. Future and I have a lot of fun activities and things up our sleeve to kind of end the year with a big bang. So included in that is our keynote speaker, Edward. Future and I had a chance to sit down with him last week and kind of talk about his journey that he's been on and his story, and you guys are really going to enjoy it. As Future and I did. And so just a few things I wanted to share about him, just so you can kind of get excited about it as well, is he's turned a 1-star school into a 4-star school in Milwaukee. He's a native of Milwaukee and has gone through the school system here. So he's got a lot of experiences and things that we can connect with and resonate with. He's been nominated by the Biz Times as a notable minority executive in Wisconsin. And he's currently on the executive board for Closing the Achievement Gap Consortium. There's his picture. You may have heard about him before or may have seen him around. He's been to different school districts in the area, but he is going to be a fantastic speaker for us to end our amazing year with. So please make sure that you mark your calendars for May 9th. It will be held in person at Alverno from 4:30 to 7:30, and dinner is included. So we hope that everyone can be there. We're looking forward to hearing everyone's celebrations from the year, what each school district and organization has completed, and really just enjoy each other's company that evening. So again, like Future said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your coach or to Future or myself directly.
Thank you so much, Katie and Future. We're really looking forward to that May date and to being all together and celebrating in person at Alverno. Julie, you're up next with the survey.
All right, so we really appreciate your feedback. It helps us plan the next session and future sessions. And we like to see what your takeaways are and in addition to what we can do better. So we're going to give you a few minutes here to do the survey before you go into your breakout rooms. And then, you know, just not too long, because I know we want to get the breakout rooms started, but please complete the survey. If not right now, then later on today, and we'll be reviewing that before our meeting on Tuesday, which is our next team meeting. So between now and Monday, please do the survey. So I'm going to drop that in the chat, unless you got that. It's already in there. All right, so there you go. Thank you.
Heather?
Yes, everybody. I just wanted to say, I know that we're going to go into our afternoon breakouts prior to our coaching sessions, but I just wanted to say that those of you who are working with Lauren and me, and so that would be DLHA, Alverno, and Woodlands, we would like you to first come to the Alverno breakout room, because we're going to start as a whole group and then go to our individual rooms. Okay? Thanks.